You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show on the new WXBR 1460.
.43 here on Tuesday, July the 1st. You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva here with you until 9 a.m. Remember, you can follow along with us on Twitter at PM in the AM Boston. Like us on Facebook, PM in the AM, the Metro South Morning Show. And the best place to check out archived interviews and segments from this particular program is on our official YouTube channel at youtube.com/PM in the AM Boston. Joining me right now in studio is a man who has frequented our program over the past 16 months or so. Welcome back to the WXBR studios, the mayor of Brockton, Bill Carpenter. Bill, good morning and welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning, Peter. Good morning, Mike. Good morning to everyone out there. What a beautiful summer morning here on July 1st.
Bill, we have to talk about this a little bit. This is the story that has been going around Brockton lately. Chief Hayden, involved in a bike incident about a week and a half ago, was riding his bike in Hingham, I believe, hit by a vehicle. Mm-hmm. At first, it looked like he would be out for a few days and back at work, but that's not necessarily the case. What's the status?
Well, probably the few days in the back at work was always way too optimistic, and that's just based upon his track record of never missing a day of work. But I am asked about it everywhere I go. So it was a week ago Sunday, it's about 9 days ago. The chief was riding his bicycle in Hingham. He's a physical fitness freak, even at his advanced age, which is not advanced for him. But at the age of 72, he still takes his bicycle for a ride, 20, 25 miles. That's his idea of going for a ride on the bike. So he was riding his bike in Hingham. He was struck by a car. He was seriously injured. I don't think on the first day we did really know the extent of his injuries. It turned out he suffered 11 broken ribs, some of them with multiple fractures, a fractured clavicle, your shoulder blade, a concussion, multiple lacerations. He was really seriously injured, and he has been in intensive care since the date of the accident. We had a real scare with him on Saturday. He was having an issue with internal bleeding, and they had tried several things to stop it. They weren't able to. One of his lungs was filling up with blood. They did a procedure putting a tube into him to drain the blood out of the lung. They drained 1.5 liters of blood out of his lung, and it still did not work. He was still having trouble breathing. And they ended up making the decision late Saturday afternoon that they needed to do a surgical procedure on him to get out the remaining blood and try to stop the bleeding. So, probably our low point was, Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, knowing that in a very weakened condition he was being wheeled in for emergency surgery. The good news is he came out of the surgery great on Sunday. He regained consciousness Sunday. He was speaking to his family, and here we are about 48 hours later, and it looks like the surgery worked. The doctors are cautiously optimistic. There is no signs of new internal bleeding. They think they got it. So they were able to clean the lung out and stop the bleeding. The bleeding was caused by a rupture from one of the broken ribs in the accident. So the great news is that it looks like the surgery has worked. I just spoke to his wife 10 minutes before we came on the air. He's going to be calling me later this morning.
Have you spoken to him yet or no?
I spoke to him the morning after the accident, and I haven't spoken to him since. Now, I speak to his family 2 or 3 times a day, between his wife Katie and his son Bobby Jr. I speak to them 2 or 3 times a day. So he does not leave my thoughts for a minute, and I'm just really happy he's doing well. So
any word if
he's doing better.
Any word if the driver's been cited?
The driver was not cited.
Okay.
The police investigated the accident. The driver was not cited. Chief Hayden has no memory of what happened. He was knocked unconscious. The line he gave to me on the radio the next morning, that was he'd been knocked out for the first time in his career. So, but the news since Saturday is good. He is gradually recovering now. It looks like the surgery has been successful. It's going to take some time, but anyone who knows him knows that he is the toughest son of a gun you ever met in your life. So He's Peter. You and I met a lot of tough guys over the years in the world of boxing. This guy's tougher than any of them.
Interesting juxtaposition with what he was doing on Saturday and with what you were doing on Saturday. In honor of him, ultimately, you were participating in the Demolition Derby at the Brockton Fair, which you actually decked out your car in support of him.
That's
with
right.
the news that he was in the accident earlier in the week. How did you get involved in that? This is not your first time being a participant.
So I tried it last year when I was running for mayor, because as a candidate, you're looking for, all publicity is good publicity. It's tough when you're an incumbent challenging. I mean, when you're a challenger challenging an incumbent. So I had announced the Demolition
Imagine
Derby
if he
for a number of
participated
years.
with you. That would be interesting.
Well, we're going to talk about that for next year. So in any event, we made plans that I was going to re-enter this year. I want to thank Brockton Auto Parts, Hank Galante, for sponsoring a car for me. And we were already working on that. And then obviously the accident happened this past week. We talked about it during the week. And we said, gee, we got to use this as a way to support the chief publicly. And then with the news on Saturday of the downturn in his condition and the emergency surgery, we said, okay, we're all in on this. So we put lettering on the side of the car for Chief Hayden. We numbered the car, which most people there wouldn't get, but the chief will love it when he sees the picture of it. We numbered the car AC numeric 1, and that stands for Alpha Charlie 1, which is the chief's radio handle when he's on the police radio. It was his handle in Boston, and he brought it with him when he came to Brockton. So the Brockton officers know when they hear Alpha Charlie 1 come on the air that the chief is out on the street in the city of Brockton. And I know that the officers love it that he goes out and drives around and has his radio handle. And so we named the car Alpha Charlie 1. And I did remarkably well. I came in second in my heat. I was down to myself and one other car.
How did you do last year?
I was knocked out early last year, but I blame that all on mechanical failure of the car. So I got hit early, and it was a smaller car, and the engine shut off, and I couldn't get the engine restarted last year. This year I hung in there, and I did pretty good, although I'm a little sore still. But I don't dare complain, because after what the chief is going through, I mean, my seatbelt wasn't as tight as it should have been. My ribs are sore. I took a good bang against the steering wheel.
You can't complain about your ribs.
I can't even. I said I don't even dare mention it to anybody. I'm going to look like the biggest pansy in the world, So I'm a little bruised and sore, but nothing I'm willing to complain about.
Now, before you were a participant in the Demolition Derby, you for a while were the announcer over the PA system for the Demolition and Derby. Do you remember the first and last time you invited Mike up to the booth to
I don't know if Bill knows this story or not.
Do you remember the first and last time?
No, I thought he came up 2 years in a row. Yeah, I remember he came up more than once, but we had a lot of fun up in the press box. That was one of the best. You and I both worked as announcers over the years, and Mike, and that's one of the best announcing gigs I ever had. They do it differently now. Now they have the announcer down on the track, but back then I used to sit up in the press box way up in the roof of the grandstand from the old horse racing days, where the track announcer used to sit, way up at the top of the roof there. And I used to sit up there all night, and we had some fun up there. And
you used to have some with some French fry guy, I remember.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, I did plugs for the vendors down along the row of just in front of the grandstand, between the grandstand and the track.
Jack's Fries?
Jack's Fries.
Yeah.
I would do some extra promos for Jack's Fries, and he'd send me up free French fries up to the thing. So I had cold beer in the cooler and free French fries, and as I say, it didn't pay a ton of money, but I had a blast doing it. And like most announcing gigs, it didn't pay a ton of money, but it was a lot of fun doing it.
Mike, would you like to fill Bill in on the infamous visit to the press box for Demolition Derby I'm speaking of?
The last time I was up there, I brought a few friends up. I let Bill know it was okay if I would bring a couple of friends up there. I'm trying to be cool with my buddies, my friends. So we're coming back down off the catwalk. This is high above the grandstand at the
people
the fair.
Underneath.
People underneath watching the program, watching the Demolition Derby, and we're walking back down, and one of my friends that I'm with trips on the grates and spills his drink down below on the people below him.
I should be surprised, right? Yeah. One of Paiva's buddies spilled the beer over the edge. What were the odds? I'm lucky he didn't go over the railing after. Yeah.
I was like, this is not a good idea. This is not good at all. Bill's never going to have me back.
Well,
there.
we also shared the perch up there with the pigeons, which made life interesting at times also, because the pigeons live there the other 51 weeks of the year and were not too happy about my presence, so they would sometimes come in and cause a little commotion.
That guy was not happy.
Mike and his friends apologized, offered to buy the guy drinks, which you did ultimately, but he still was very upset.
Yeah, well, can you blame the guy?
I can't blame the guy.
He got a nice shower that day.
Yeah.
Bill, we're about a week into summer here in the city of Brockton, and with Chief Aiden currently, out of commission to some degree, one thing that he spoke of in the months leading up to summertime very publicly was that we're not going to be able to really tell the progress of a lot of things the Brockton Police Department has done up until this point until the summertime when it's warm all the time and criminals are likely to be outside and not inside due to cold weather. What have you seen in and around the Brockton city streets thus far this summer? Only a week in, and what have you heard?
Well, there's no question that violence increases in American cities during the summertime, all across the country, and Brockton's no different. And so this is the most challenging time of the year for us. So, do I feel as though we're making progress on a daily basis in terms of getting guns and drugs off the streets of the city? Absolutely. I know we're making progress. I see the arrests. We hear the information coming in through the intelligence sources that the drug dealers and the gang leaders know that it's different in Brockton now. And as they would say, it's hot in Brockton right now. I believe the biggest difference we see right now in the early summer is the motorcycle unit. We've got half a dozen motorcycle officers out there with 2 more coming. And I do believe, particularly in the warm weather months, that the motorcycles will be effective in helping us to keep the streets calm. Having said all that, I'm not under any misconceptions that we're going to magically wave a wand and end violence in the city in a matter of weeks or months. It's taken decades for us to get to where we're at today. And this is going to be a battle. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And this is the tough time of the year. And there is going to be violence, and we need to keep it to a minimum. So I think we're looking at this from both sides. I mean, we're very proactively trying to work with clergy, work with civic groups, work with neighbors, to take back control of our neighborhoods and to send the message to reduce the violence. We had a summer solstice, beginning of summer cookout a weekend ago, and it went well, and that was the message. That was the message. Stop, think, let it go. But, I mean, guns are on the streets of the city, drugs are on the streets of the city. There is going to be violence, and we're going to do the best we can to quell it, to contain it. There was a shooting. What did I say? Sunday. There was a shooting in the city on Sunday. It was not fatal, but there was a shooting, and the victim was well known to police. I mean, so it's the vast majority of this violence is involving people who are involved in criminal activity. The problem is sometimes innocent people get hurt. The problem is I don't want people afraid in their neighborhoods. So we're making a big effort to reclaim the parks and playgrounds, reclaim the open spaces. If anyone has a chance to see the beautiful new James Edgar playground, we've made a major investment there. We're going to invest in, we just received a state grant to bring back we're going to rebuild a former playground over on Mulberry Street that was abandoned by the city about 20 years ago. It's a vacant, overgrown lot right now that used to be a playground. And we've just been approved for a state grant. It does require 20% match from the city that I have already allocated. And you'll see us break ground there, hopefully in August, building a new playground where one used to be. We're working on neighborhood associations. I'm bringing a music concert series into the parks. Sundays in the month of August, you'll see us 4 Sundays in a row in 4 different parks with free music performances from 4 to 6 p.m., targeting families and neighborhoods, getting people out of the neighborhoods back into the park. Monday, you'll see us kick off the mayor's Summer Parks program. I'm trying to renew something that I had as a kid growing up, and that's opening up the playgrounds to young kids. So starting Monday, for 8 weeks from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., we've got 5 playgrounds across the city that will be staffed by college students working summer jobs, overseen by a certified teacher. And we'll have sports and activities and a free healthy lunch. And I'm working on right now, working on some busing to get some kids over in the swimming pool a couple times a week. So what this does, this is for kids ages 7 to 12. So, we have Brockton After Dark, which has been a successful program that we've even increased our commitment to Brockton After Dark this year, but that's for kids 13 and older in the evening. The new Mayor's Summer Parks program is targeting younger kids ages 7 to 12, and we know that a lot of these kids are left home during the day. They've got single parents that work, both parents that work, families that don't have enough money for daycare for younger kids, or families that just don't have the extra money in their budget to send their children off to an expensive summer camp. So what we're trying to do is bring back. This accomplishes a lot of things. We got 24, 25 college kids a summer job this summer working there. We created some summer jobs. We've created a safe haven for kids to go for half a day every day during the week to a playground with counselors there that will be safe, that will be supervised. There's going to be exercise and activities. A free healthy lunch is going to be served every day. Any kid that shows up at the playground, whether they're participating in the program or not, will not be turned away for a free healthy lunch. And I'm hoping we'll work. The final detail we're working on right now is trying to come up with enough money to pay for some buses so that we can bus some kids over to the swimming pools during the summer also. So I think this is another step in us taking the parks and playgrounds back, that the neighbors, the residents, taking the parks and playgrounds back, using them for what they're intended to be used for, provide a safe haven for kids, get people out of their houses into the neighborhoods. We're also supporting more block parties across the city. So if you're interested in hosting a block party in your neighborhood, we'll help underwrite some of the cost. Because the block parties are another great way. I went to one that's been going on for years that I can't take any credit for this past Saturday over here on the west side. But I've been to a couple others the weekend before that are new ones on streets and neighborhoods. And they're working, getting people out of their houses, neighbors to talk to each other, take back control of their neighborhood. We can apply for a permit and block a street off for a couple hours to create a real block party. So we're making a lot of efforts, and I know this is a long answer, but this all comes back around to how do we reduce violence in the city. We've got to stabilize neighborhoods. That means forcing banks to take care of vacant, abandoned properties. That means using code enforcement to get rid of graffiti and junk cars. That means bringing in a police presence, a stronger police presence, like motorcycle police officers that are being very well received. That means reestablishing real community policing, where police officers are actually out in the community talking with people in the community. And we're going to keep up our, what Chief Hayden has initiated, and I've supported him 100%, is proactive policing. Our police department is going after drug dealers and people carrying illegal guns every day. And felony arrests are up 50% over the same period of time a year ago. So our police department is doing a great job with the resources that they have. And we're going to use every tool in our means, including video surveillance cameras that I've been pushing for very hard across the city. I met with 30 or 40 of the bar owners yesterday in an informal meeting, just talking about how can we tweak a regulation that they would support to get some video surveillance cameras up in and around bars. And I think you'll see something happening on that within the next 30 days. So I'm doing everything I can to make the city safer. I believe video surveillance cameras make the city safer. We're not going to have them all up for this summer, but we're beginning, and I'm looking on the city side getting cameras up, and I'm working with business owners and private property owners to get cameras up.
Now, it's pretty obvious from appearances that you've had in our show and from just speaking with you this morning that you have a very close relationship with Chief Hayden, talk to him on a daily basis when, he's able to speak with you.
Prior to the accident, I talked to him every day.
Who's your communication with the Brockton Police Department when he's out of commission?
Well, it's a little ironic. Chief Hayden was on vacation at the time of the accident, so he had we'd said all along he was going to take, at least 4 weeks and maybe 5 weeks vacation over the course of the year. That's typical for a police chief. We know there's a couple city councilors that are very concerned with this 960 hours and making sure that we don't go over that. So by using some vacation time, that would make sure that we could stay within the 960 hours. So because he was on vacation, he had designated Lieutenant Crowley to exercise all of his authorities during his absence. So that just continues now with the chief's accident. So Lieutenant Crowley, with written authority from the chief, is running the police department on a day-to-day basis. And I speak with him just about every day. I probably speak to Chief Hayden at least a couple times a day now that I think about it, but that's just the nature of our relationship, I guess. It's not always strictly business, But Lieutenant Crowley does check in with me at least on a daily basis to keep me apprised of what's going on, and as Chief Francis does on the fire department side too. I speak to both chiefs daily. I think it's one of the biggest parts of the mayor's job is protecting the people who live in the city. And that's everything from emergency management to fire to police. And, the number one challenge, as you mentioned, we face at this time of year is trying to keep a lid on violence.
You mentioned city councilors keeping tabs on hours, for example, of Chief Hayden. You've had somewhat of a contentious relationship with some city councilors during your tenure as mayor. What's your relationship as the council at large right now, in your opinion?
I don't really think it's been contentious. I think, maybe there was a little contentiousness the first month or two as we all started getting used to each other. I think my style is probably a little different than the style of some other mayors they've dealt with in the past. And I think that we're doing a better job on both sides, quite honestly. I think you're seeing a lot less of that now. I think the council and I have worked together on a number of initiatives. And I believe that an effort's been made on both sides to strengthen the relationship. I know I've consciously tried to do better in communicating with counselors and trying to find middle ground with counselors before we debate an issue in front of the TV cameras. And I honestly, and I have to say this, I think there's been a real effort made by a number of the counselors also. I think we all realize that, particularly in our form of government, nothing can get done in city government without the council and the mayor working together. It just can't happen. So, the budget was a tough budget. I made a lot of tough decisions with the budget, but I fulfilled my campaign promise. I delivered a balanced budget that did not call for any new taxes. Now, I think there were a lot of councilors early in the year that were pretty skeptical as whether we could do that or not. But I think that, and they did their due diligence. We had 3 long nights of budget hearings, and they asked a lot of questions, as they should. But I think at the end of the day, they realized that we had delivered a very responsible budget that continued to provide all essential services to residents of the city, and did not raise taxes, which I think, in terms of us rebuilding the economy of this city, us getting businesses to come here, getting investors to invest here, it was critical. We had to send the message that we would not continue to raise taxes, and we did that.
We're chatting with Mayor Bill Carpenter here on a WXBR, the Talk of Metro South. As is a tradition, when Bill Carpenter's in studio, we decide to blow by whatever news break is forthcoming, so we'll continue on with the conversation.
Sure.
Outside of the different playground initiatives that you mentioned earlier, what other initiatives is the mayor's office implementing for the summertime? Because I know there's pools and there's a whole plethora of things.
Yeah, this is a great time to be in the city. That first day of summer, 2 Saturdays ago, I appeared at 8 different events around the city between 9 in the morning and 9 at night. I had a great day. It was awesome.
We think you hold a record for a mayor of Brockton, by the way. Mike and myself have discussed on air. We think that you hold the record for throwing the most first pitches of any mayor there's been in Brockton.
Of varying qualities. I threw a couple real good ones. I threw a couple I'd like to have back. Although, at least I did okay at girls softball. That one I handled okay. But yeah, I enjoy throwing out the first pitches. I like being out in the ball fields, and that's the fun stuff of being mayor. I love being mayor, and that's the stuff that I love, is that you get to be out, participate in those things, and people are excited that you're there, and they appreciate the fact that you're there, and I stopped by. I'll give you a quick example. I stopped by the Manning Pool yesterday afternoon. That's the pool that's up on the campus of Brockton High School because we just opened the pool yesterday. And a great crowd. Matter of fact, during the time I was there, they had to stop letting people in because they had reached the maximum capacity. And then once they hit that maximum capacity in the afternoon, they have someone on the gate. And when someone leaves, then they can let someone else in. But there's a maximum number of people you can have in the pool at one time. But I stopped by to take a walk around, see how the pool looks, see how it was going. And jeepers, I can't tell you how many people, mostly moms with kids, came to talk to me. And either kids wanted to get a picture or say hello, or moms wanted to talk about an issue or the pool or whatever it might be. So it's great, and I love being out there. And I mean, maybe I'm out there a little bit more than some other mayors have been, but I love that part of the job. I love being out meeting people, and I think that's how I think the mayor's got to do that stuff because that's how you find out what's really going on. We did last night. I did the next in my Mondays with the Mayor series, so from 4:30 to 7 last night, my office was open for any constituent to come in. And
have you seen a difference in that since you've moved to nighttime as opposed to the former breakfast with the mayor?
Well, I never actually did that.
Okay,
What you're referring to during the campaign, I talked about coffee with the mayor, and that was my idea, was that once a month I would open up City Hall early and be available with coffee to talk to any residents that wanted to. Once I got in there, and as I've settled in and become more acclimated to working in City Hall, it became apparent to me from talking to a lot of people that if I really wanted to accomplish what I was looking to accomplish, which is to open up City Hall, to have residents able to walk in and get an issue or problem addressed, that it made a lot more sense to do it in the evening. So the word I would use is evolved, Peter. The original campaign idea of coffee with the mayor evolved into Mondays with the mayor. So now we're going to have one, but the demand is so big, we're already up to two Monday nights a month. I'm in my office with the office open. Any constituent can come in and see me for 10 minutes. We do book appointments for it, for 10-minute meetings with me, just to keep some order to it and to be fair to everyone that comes in. And I got to tell you, last night we started at 4:30. It's supposed to start at 5, but we started at 4:30. And I saw people right up until about 7:40. We got a little bit backed up because a few extra people showed up. A couple of people took a little bit longer. But it's being very well received. So now it's Mondays with the mayor. The next two, I believe, are the 3rd and 4th Mondays of July will be the next two. And you just call the mayor's office and make an appointment and come in. So I get everything from community service groups to people with a problem with their water bill to people concerned about their neighborhood to people that want to make a complaint about a particular city department. But I do it for a lot of reasons. I want to make it clear to the folks who live here that I work for them. It's not the other way around. I work for the people who live in the city, and I need to make myself available to listen to them. But also, I think it's a way for me to constantly be evaluating how good of a job the city is doing delivering services to its residents, and to help me identify when there's an issue. So, if the people who work for you, when I have a department head meeting, they're not running in to tell me what a lousy job they've done. When I have people in to see me that work for the city, that run the various departments, they never bring up any real problems or issues. So, how's a mayor going to find out how we're really doing? Well, by speaking directly to the people who live here, who are accessing those services. And I'll tell you, already, it has caused me on several occasions to address customer service complaints. And again, I can't change the world in a day, but I am making it very clear to the people who work for us, who do a great job. But I am addressing those customer service complaints, and I think this is how the mayor is going to keep. This is how I'm going to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the city and what kind of a job we're doing with city services by making myself available for any resident to come in. Don't have to know me. Don't have to have ever met me before. It's okay if you opposed me during the last campaign. I think about half the people that come in to see me preface their conversations saying, "Well, I didn't vote for you, but."
Well, it was roughly half.
It was exactly half. So, give or take 55 votes. So
you can't hold that against them when it's half and half.
Yeah,
right?
No, I don't mind. I take it as my goal. Honestly, Peter, what I say to most people when they say that to me is I say, well, I'm going to work hard to get your vote next time. So, the last election campaign is ancient history. The new one I'm not even worried about yet. But when the time comes, I'm looking at it that every day I'm working hard to do the best job I can. But in terms of, people who didn't think me becoming mayor was necessarily a good idea, I'm working hard every day to convince them to just, give me a chance, see what I can do. And I honestly believe I'm winning a lot of those folks over one day at a time, because I think at the end of the day, I don't think with most people it's personal. I think almost everybody, we want what's best for the city. And if I do a good job, folks will support me.
You recently made your third trip to Washington, D.C. to lobby some lawmakers for some money for the city of Brockton. What came out of that trip?
Well, the entire trip was 28 hours. So from the time I left to the time I got back was 28 hours. I think it's critical that the mayor has to get down to D.C. regularly to visit the staffs of both the two U.S. senators and Congressman Lynch. The city needs help from the federal level. And so I believe, and I've come to this belief by speaking with a number of former mayors and also some veteran mayors from around the country, that it really is incumbent upon the mayor to develop relationships with the staffs down in Washington of the congressmen and the two senators. Now, obviously, I can get an opportunity once in a while to see the congressman or one of the senators when they're home in Massachusetts. I'm really traveling down there to work with their staffs. These guys all are Senator Warren and Senator Markey and Congressman Lynch. They all have big staffs down in Washington, and it's important for me to develop the relationships with them. So that's a big part of it, and it's making them aware of the type of help that the federal government may be able to offer to the city. So specifically, I really went down there for three big things. We have some grant applications pending with various federal agencies, and I went down there to try to build support among the two senators in the congressman's office to help us, give us a better chance of being awarded those grants. So one grant application we just put in recently to the Department of Labor is for $3 million over 5 years for job training for Brockton residents, middle-level job skills, people that are above a high school diploma but below a college degree. That's a big population in a city like Brockton, and this is to provide specialized job training so folks can get a good job that they can support their family on, not just work at Market Basket or somewhere, but get a job in the medical field, in the biotech field, in precision machinery, a number of these fields. So this is in conjunction with the Brockton Area Workforce Investment Board. We're seeking $3 million for job training. The mayor's office has partnered with Self-Help to apply for federal money from HUD for lead paint abatement. Now, we used to get that money for years, but the federal government pulled the lead paint money out of Brockton a year ago, and that program is defunct now. So what this program does, it helps low and middle income homeowners abate the lead paint in their property, which can be cost prohibitive. It's a key to us turning around these distressed neighborhoods. Most of the vacant abandoned property tends to be in the inner core of the city, and that's where all the lead paint is. That's all the housing stock that was built before World War II that all has lead paint in it. So I'm working hard. I've created, we'll talk about it in more detail next time I see you, but I've taken a couple of the old task forces, the receivership task force and the foreclosure task force, and I've melded them in with everyone's cooperation into one task force. Now, the mayor's task force on housing and neighborhood stabilization, because I think a big piece of what we need to be doing now is addressing the effects of the foreclosure crisis, which is a lot of vacant houses in neighborhoods that are a real problem. And part of our approach to that, you're going to see us coming out with a down payment assistance program to help first-time home buyers buy distressed properties, vacant properties. But we're never going to be successful in getting these houses reoccupied by owner occupants unless we can get some help with the cost of the lead paint abatement. Sometimes, the family can barely scrape up the down payment to get into the house, but $30,000 or $40,000 to abate the lead paint is impossible. So I went down to lobby for that. We've applied for $3.5 million from HUD in their next round of funding for lead paint abatement. And then the final thing I really lobbied hard for last week was we've applied to FEMA for a program they have to get federal help to buy a new ladder truck for the fire department. We've had 3 ladder trucks running in the past. At the time that we applied for this grant a few months ago, we'd already lost 1 out of service due to mechanical problems. We're down to 2. Since then, Tower 1 has now gone down, and we're looking at potentially $500,000 to do the necessary repairs on it. For a 33-year-old truck, it just doesn't make sense. So we have an application pending with FEMA that if we were successful, FEMA would provide 90% funding. Now, believe it or not, one fire truck, a ladder truck, goes for $1 million. One ladder truck is $1 million. If we can be successful with this grant application, we'd get $900,000 from the federal government. The city would only have to match $100,000 to get $1 million ladder truck that we desperately need. So the challenge there is to get the help of the senators and the congressmen to make FEMA aware that Brockton's situation has changed for the worse since our original application went in. We can't change the original application, so I need Congressman Lynch and the senators to use their position to let FEMA know how critical the need in Brockton has become for this ladder truck, and hopefully that moves us up the list and we can get that funding. So I did talk to them about a number of other issues, but those were the big 3 I went down for this time. And some folks said, what are you running down there for at the end of June? Well, that job training grant is due to be awarded July 15th. So I originally was not planning on going back until the fall, but with the possibility that making the trip down there would improve our chances to get $3 million of job training money for Brockton, I think it's worth a day of my time and the cost to run down there and back. Now, I look at it, if we're successful in any one out of those 3, well, that's a great day and some travel expense money that I spent to go down there and improve our chances.
Now, we talked a little bit about the budget earlier, and one of the main places where there were some cuts in the budget this year is the Brockton public school system was well publicized. A lot of teachers losing their jobs and whatnot.
Which is now back to 0. All the teachers have been recalled.
So all the teachers have been recalled?
All the teachers have been recalled. There is not one single pink slip to a teacher.
Well, there you go. That pretty much answers my question.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't have to ask it.
There are still, listen, the budget problems on the school side are very real. And I think, the superintendent and I have had some disagreement over some portions of it, but I think at the end of the day we agree upon a lot more than we disagree upon. And the reality is that the state has to change the formula for how they reimburse gateway cities like Brockton, who have dramatically increasing student populations, for educational costs for the Chapter 70 money. Right now, the census is taken on October 1st, and how many students you have this October 1st determines your aid for next year, not for this year, for next year. It's always 1 year behind. So if you have a school system like Brockton that's growing by 400 to 450 students, net gain of 400 to 450 students per year, well, we're now educating those 450 kids for a whole year without getting a penny of state reimbursement. Now, it gets even more difficult because in a gateway city like Brockton, new students are showing up every day. This isn't just kids come in during the summertime. New students show up to the Brockton Public Schools every day. We look back at the last couple of years, and of those 450 new students, over 300 come in after the October 1st census, which means we pick them up for the rest of this year and all of next year with no reimbursement, and don't see the first penny of reimbursement till 2 school years from now. There's only half a dozen cities like Brockton that are in this position, and so the way that they're funding us for the reimbursement for the students, it doesn't come close to meeting what the real need is. Using round numbers, we're shortchanged probably about $9 million by that formula this year. So you had that compounded by cutbacks at the federal level. Race to the Top money ran out. That was an Obama grant program. They cut Title I by $2 million to the city. So I mention these things because there is a crisis in how we fund the Brockton Public Schools. I think it was very misunderstood. It's not from the city side. the money, that the state aid that did come in, that does then get matched in part by the city, going over to the schools, is up $3.6 million from a year ago. We sent over in local aid $3.6 million more than a year ago. The problem is that still wasn't enough. In order to maintain level services, which is the superintendent's goal, she felt she was still about $5 million shy, despite the $3.6 million increase. So the school committees worked very hard with the superintendent to make some very painful cuts. I pledged that I would look, when we completed the city budget, to try to scrape up anything we could scrape up. And at the last school committee meeting, I did bring over from the city side a total of an additional $500,000 in aid from the city. We picked up the cost of the 3 school resource officers that had been cut, $125,000. We sent money over for intramural, middle school intramural sports and freshman sports, which had been cut from the budget. We also agreed to pay for a couple things that would have been normally paid for by the schools. So when you added that all up, it was $500,000 of additional help. Is that enough by itself? No, but it's another piece of the puzzle. And I know the superintendent's working very hard this summer with the school committee to identify additional funding, continue to make difficult decisions, but call people back. Even though all the teachers have been called back, there are still a lot of non-certified folks who have been laid off, and we need to get them back too. And a little bit of my frustration is I do believe this school budget has been balanced on the back of Brockton residents. I mean, no secretaries have been called back, no custodians have been called back. Paraprofessionals, they've just begun, I think they called 20 paraprofessionals back recently, but that's 20 out of like 70. So we've still got a lot of work to do. I'm supporting the superintendent and the school committee in any way that I can. But, it is a difficult budget year on the school side. But I think that by the time the first day of school comes around, the Brockton kids are going to receive the same first-class public school education that they're accustomed to.
We talked about the playground initiative earlier and the pools opening around the city. Other events happening in the summer include the farmers market here in the city of Brockton.
Farmers market on Wednesdays now, so that's for the old. I'm a huge farmers market fan. I love native fresh produce during the summertime. So farmers markets have run for at least a couple of years now, maybe longer, on Fridays in City Hall Plaza. Well, City Hall Plaza, as we know, it doesn't really exist right now. It's a construction site. That's the bad news. The good news is next spring we're going to have a beautiful downtown park for City Hall Plaza. But in the meantime, we've moved the location down to the corner, Finnegan's Park, which is that beautiful park we've got right on the corner of Crescent Street and North Montello. That's where the farmers market is now, and it's been moved to Wednesdays, which had something to do with the state, not the city. But Wednesdays from 10 to 2 at Finnegan's Park on the corner of Crescent and Montello Street, North Montello, is where the farmers market is. It doesn't look like there's parking. There's plenty of parking. On the Crescent Street side, there's the former Liberty Bank building, which the city is in the process of buying right now, has a nice big parking lot right across the street. Or on the North Montello Street side, right across from White Avenue, there's a large city parking lot there that's not being used right now. So there's plenty of parking. We'll put a big push on, I think, particularly starting next week, because we've got 2 or 3 of the farms that haven't been coming yet that have told us that starting next week they will be in with their locally grown produce. It'll be late enough in the season that they'll be picking local produce and be coming in with it. So every Wednesday through the summer, what I want people to really mark their calendars for is the Wednesdays in the month of August, because the Wednesdays in the month of August during the farmers markets from 12 to 1 each day, we'll have live music performances in Finnegan's Park as part of the farmers market day. And what I'm trying to do is get the people out of the buildings, get the people out of the courthouse and the school department and City Hall and W.B. Mason, and get them to come out to the park in the middle of a beautiful summer day. And I'm hoping we can bring them out and some live music. If people want to bring their lunch out to the park, come out and buy some fresh produce. But you're going to see us taking some of these initiatives to take back ownership and control of the open spaces. And that's a beautiful park, and we need to get people out there using it. So we'll have, in the month of August, every Wednesday, live music there from 12 to 1. And we'll also have 4 Sundays in the month of August, where from 4 to 6 at 4 different parks on 4 different Sundays, we'll have live music performances there too. So we're trying some different things to improve the quality of life for the residents in the city and to reclaim ownership of the parks and playgrounds. And I think that's an important part to turning the city around. So we've got playgrounds open for kids starting on Monday, and the farmers market at Finnegan's Park every Wednesday. The Keith Park people down on the south side of the city have done a great job bringing Keith Park back. So we're looking to support those things. And we still do have the traditional Mayor's Summer Concert Series at Heights Crossing is still on every Thursday night for the month of July. So there will be 4 concerts still at Heights Crossing, continuing the Summer Concert Series there. We'll do 4 concerts during July at Heights Crossing but on Thursday nights, but then in the month of August, we'll go to Sundays from 4 to 6 and be at 4 different parks around the city.
No summer is complete in Brockton without seeing George Cataldo sing karaoke in a flamingo collar jacket, folks.
George Cataldo also performs in the mayor's office every Thursday. George is still one of our most devoted volunteers and one of the greatest ambassadors we have for the city. And
I saw him at
we
City
all
Hall
love George
a few weeks ago, and I asked him to come on the show, and he said, I have to check my schedule. I got a lot of bookings. And I thought he was kidding. He opens up an old-school calendar book, and he is booked singing every day of the week.
Absolutely.
He's all over the place.
He is. He's great. And he does come in and volunteer at the mayor's office on Thursdays, and some people come in and think he's the mayor because he's always dressed better than I am. So that's
Well, Bill, we want to thank you so much for coming on the program this morning. Any final words for our listeners?
I hope all the families will enjoy the summer. Let's keep it safe here in the city this summer. If there's an issue or problem that we can help you with, 508-580-7123. And I've got a great team of people working for me in the mayor's office, and we work very hard on constituent services every day. But come out to the farmers market if you got kids between the ages of 7 and 12. Let me just mention the 5 playgrounds. So it's the playground at the Gilmore School on the south side, the James Edgar Playground, the Ash Street Playground, O'Donnell's Playground, and North Junior High. So we try to put them strategically around the city geographically. And beginning Monday, kids ages 7 to 12, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., we have a free parks and playground program.
That's Mayor of Brockton, Bill Carpenter, joining us here on WXBR, the Talk of Metro South. Bill, thank you.
My pleasure.
Mike's going to have a local news update for us, so stick with us here, PM in the AM.
Very local, very southern New England. This is the new AM 1460 WXBR Brockton, a broadcast service of Azure Media, LLC.